My name is Patroklos Papapetrou. I guess there are too many P's for you, so you can call me Pat if you want. The reason I'm here is because I want to share my experience. I had the last 1 year working with several distributed development teams. It happens to be their manager. So before we start, how many of you are with one or other way managing some development team? Very few. How many of you do you want at some point in the future to manage some teams and switch from a developer to a manager or tech lead? None. Okay, few of them. Okay, good. I guess you are curious to see what it means to manage global teams. That's why I'm here. Okay, a few things about me. Like I told you, I work as a development manager for a US company the last 1 year, and I live in Greece. It's around there. Have you been in Greece? Yeah? Okay, cool. It's still summer. Actually, I left with 35 degrees yesterday, and it was kind of a shock for me. It's been a hell of a week. Actually, I was supposed to arrive here on Sunday, but I didn't mess with the tickets, and then I forgot my plug adapter, and at least I'm here and I can present the talk. So, 1 year ago, I took probably the most challenging decision in my development career. I decided to switch from a pure and hands-on developer role to a more tech lead and development manager role. Actually, I have done this in the past, but not as a full-time job. I was managing the team and I was writing code at the same time. This decision was even more drastic because I left the company that I worked. It was a traditional company, an office, with co-located people, and I decided to join this distributed team. So my responsibilities are to manage multiple development teams, actually manage about 7-8 teams, and my key role is to enforce that they follow the same processes, the same practices, the core values of the companies, and they deliver value to the customers. So before I explain what I learned, and to be honest, I learned them sometimes in the hard way. I want you to give you some numbers. I'm passionate about numbers. Okay, I mean, I measure almost everything. I love numbers and metrics, and my belief is that numbers are a very powerful tool to the hands of a manager. They can lead you to some good or bad decision if you can interpret them correctly or if you are measuring them fine. So before that, I want to tell you things about telecommuting. Actually, this is my source. My graphics are mine, but the source is there. You can find it. You can see more details. 20% of the global workforce are actually telecommuting. It's not about only developers. It's any given profession. I don't know the numbers about developers, but I know that we are about 19 million developers all around the world. Actually, 300,000 are living in the UK. These are the numbers that I got. So 20% of the global workforce is telecommuting. Now, not everyone is working full-time from home. So from these 20%, only 10% is working full-time from home. That makes only 2% of the global workforce. Probably these numbers are slightly different for developers and the IT in general, but I want you to give the idea. Also, not only 61% is working 1 day per week. This is, it's a policy that many companies have and allow people to work at least one day per week from home, and the rest of the percent is working sometimes from home. I think that this is more or less about, or not only about the global workforce, but also about the development area. Some more numbers that are quite interesting. 64% of the employees are willing to sacrifice their pay to get paid less in order to work from home. Can you imagine that? I mean, why? Probably the answer is because I will not spend so much time driving to and from my office to my home. Okay, I will earn 1-2 hours, and I will spend less to my car and gas, and I will have more time with my family. But this is really interesting, very interesting. At the same time, 65% of the employees are more productive, and this is are not responses from the employees. These are responses from the employers, from the companies. So it seems that everyone, or at least most of the people, love telecommuting. Okay, so my rhetorical question is, why still only 2% are working from home? I will not going to answer that, or I'm not going to convince you how well or bad it is to work from home. Just showing some numbers to give you the context about remote working. Some numbers to compare. Okay. Again, this is my source. 24% of people are working from home in the US, whereas in the UK, they're only 10%. I don't know why. Maybe you can answer that. That's the truth. However, it's reality that nowadays we have really very good fiber optic network. Okay, it's really even easier for people to work from home. There are tools that help you. Okay, and great technologies that allow distributed teams to work together and collaborate. Some more trends before I move to my experience. These are really interesting trends. If there was a similar research 5 years ago, you could see that the typical telecommuter was a woman with kids, and there was a reason behind that, because women should be at home raising the kids, so they have to work at the same time. So what a perfect combination to work at home with the kids. However, this is changing. So a typical telecommuter is a male at the age of 40, like me. Okay, that doesn't mean that women start working from home, but the majority of people are this kind of profile. Something even more interesting is that companies believe that allowing people to work from home are helping the planet. Okay, so they are showing, their social profile, and they are helping to save the planet by reducing, pollution or traffic jam or whatever. And the final one is that some of these companies are using also telecommuting as part of their emergency plan. So, for instance, in cases of earthquake or other extreme weather conditions where people cannot drive to their workplace, the business should be still running, because companies have customers all around the world. They cannot stop their customer support services or the infrastructure because of an earthquake or a hurricane. So they allow people working from home, and they are keeping their business up and running, and probably their customers happy. So enough with the numbers. Now, I want you to understand that although there are many potentials and there are great advantages of working at home, when it comes to manage people, probably those of you are already managers, you know that managing people is hard, especially when you have everyday communication and interaction. However, it's even harder in some cases when it comes to manage global teams. Actually, I wanted to put here a photo of mine doing face palm or double face palms or whatever reaction I made during some conference calls, but I picked this one. So there are several different problems that they are added on the top of the existing ones when you have to deal with different characters, different people, different skills and all this stuff. Let me start with the first one, which is quite easy to understand: different time zones. I manage people that are literally working all around the world. I have a team, but there are some people in Latin America, some of them are in Europe, in Asia, and in Australia. Okay, so they are working almost in all different time zones. When I joined the team, I was terrified. How am I supposed to work with these guys? How am I supposed to track their progress? How am I supposed to resolve communication issues? And how I will build a team, but they should work as a team. You know, it's not about having a team that has 4 or 5 individuals working in their silos. We want to build a team, a virtual team. So that's the first problem that I faced. The second one, and I think that was, at least from my point of view, the worst, is the absence of face-to-face communication. I still remember the first time that I started working for this company, in my new working environment. I was introduced by the previous manager of the team, who, by the way, he was promoted to the SVP of engineering, and I was introduced to this virtual team. And it felt so awkward to speak in front of my laptop to a bunch of developers that I have never seen, and they were, listening to me for the first time. I didn't know where they were located and where are the skills. In some cases, I couldn't even understand them because nobody speaks English as their mother. They're not native speakers, and in some cases, network communication made things even worse. So how am I supposed to manage and communicate with all these people just using my laptop? I have to admit that 2 years ago, I had a similar offer to manage only one team remotely, and it was even better because I had to move to that team once every month, and I rejected because I was afraid that I couldn't do that. I don't know why I changed my mind, but now I can tell you that I found some solutions to these problems. The next one is about culture and ethics. Probably you will not find any developer in this African village, but everything I knew, or at least I believed I knew about human relationships and how people react in some common scenarios and common situations, actually everything collapsed in a single day. You don't know how people from different cultures react to some extreme situations like stressful periods, or delivering to the customer, or following some particular process. Okay, and actually there are 2 things here that may make the team building even harder. The first one is the different perceptions of teamwork. I read a study that tells that people that coming from the Western civilization, Europe, US, are not very well team players because we have learned to work as individuals. On the other hand, on the other side, people from India, China, these areas, Pakistan, they have a different perception of team, and they are more willing to work together as a team. I don't know if it's true or not, but I know that people are getting the idea of team differently. The other one is the false perception of similarity. I made that mistake, at least in the beginning. For instance, I hired 2 guys, one from India, one from Pakistan. I thought that, hey, these countries are together, so they have to speak more or less the same language, and they have to follow the same ethics. I was completely wrong. These guys, I wouldn't say they hate each other, at least they don't like each other. So they're completely different people with completely different ethics, so you don't have to assume anything. The next one is language, okay? That would be a nightmare. Like I told you, the fact that nobody speaks to the mother tongue, it will make things fragile. Words also have different meaning in some cases. and it's really easy to mislead people. So actually I have an example, again from a guy in India. I was chatting with him, face-to-face communication, and I was trying to describe something. And he was continuously shaking his head like this. Well, what do you understand if I do that? But they don't agree, right? But for the Indian guys, that means, yes, I agree. And I was keep telling him, hey, I will keep explaining again and again. And after some time, he told me, why do you repeating the same thing? I agree with you, and I want to do that. And then I realized that this means yes in India. So now I think it was funny, but at this point, it was a very awkward situation. Now, it's very critical, the language thing, because you have to explain people in different areas in the world how they can cooperate towards the same goal. And you have to explain the detail. You know, we are writing software, and we are not working only on the high level of requirements. You have to explain the details, the processes, what you are expecting from them. So it's in some cases, I found it was really hard to communicate with them. A good trick here, although it's not very productive, is to whenever you have a very critical and important point that you want to clarify, it's a good idea to repeat the same thing again with different words, so you can make sure and double check that everyone understood the same idea. Okay, that was the 4 or 5 different problems that I at least identified. Now, let's start with the beginning, how to build a team. Actually, this doesn't look very different from traditional team building. You have to identify the scope, the budget, what's the purpose of the team, what are the different roles and the skills, and staff them as soon as possible. That's pretty typical with every development team. Now, what about staffing? What about interviews? How are you going to evaluate all these guys? So there are two possible ways to do that. One is to cooperate with existing, not recruiting companies, but companies that have ready prepared technical and trial tests for your developers. So you have to cooperate with them and ask them to give you a list of candidates, from a pipeline, and you can hire them and be sure that they have passed all tests. The other one is to prepare your own tests. It's probably more convenient if you want to test for particular skills, but it takes more time. In both ways, at some point, I strongly recommend to do an interview. An interview has to be done probably in a virtual environment. So a very good idea is to interview candidates and forcing them to use the web camera to see their reactions, okay? And also having an interview with a webcam will let you know and see what is the level of the English skills, if they can clearly communicate their ideas and explain them to you. And also, it's a trick also to test their bandwidth connection. I found that in some cases, I cannot communicate with people, or I cannot work with people that don't have a pretty decent bandwidth connection. It doesn't work. And at this point, by conducting the first interview with the candidate, you start building trust with them. Because I find that many people are afraid to work for a virtual company, a distributed company, because they don't trust the employer. They think that most companies are monkey companies, and they will not get paid from them. There's a monkey business, and they are only want to use them to produce some system and then throw them away. So you have to overcome also these fears. And by conducting this interview and allowing this guy to see that, hey, I'm a real person, I'm working at home at the same time, and discussing like you are in the same office, you start building trust with the team. This trust has to be continued when you staff your team member. So what I recommend, and I found very valuable, is to have a kickoff meeting, virtual meeting of course, which is again typical for traditional teams. But what I insist on in this meeting, I ask everyone to introduce themselves from a technical perspective, maybe also inform the rest of the team what are the typical working hours, to have an idea where they can be available. And also I ask them to tell something personal about themselves, you know, not to break the ice, but to make them feel that, hey, we are starting working as a team. So I try to start building trust from the day one, to inspire them, motivate them, and make them feel comfortable that there's nothing different from the traditional company, and the only difference is that you're working from home, and you can work, you have all this flexibility, you can work any time of the day, any day of the week, but everything else remains the same. It's like any other company. So after the building of a team, it comes to manage them. I identified 6 different axes that probably there are more, but these are the most important that will let you manage effectively all these things. There's communication, collaboration, automation. It's important more than ever in this case. Clear expectations, self-leadership, and solid process. And all this stuff again is to create all this trusted environment between the management and the team and all the colleagues. Let's start with the virtual communication. First of all, now, like I told you, the problem is that everyone is working from home in different time zones. So it's really important to try to find at least some time during the week when everyone can sit together. So what I do, I set up a bunch of different meetings. Probably, for sure, there's a weekly meeting. You can, parallelize that as a Scrum meeting, a planning meeting, or whatever you want. I don't put any label. It's a weekly meeting where everyone should attend that meeting, and we are doing planning. We monitor our progress. We try to fix things in our process, set the goals for next week, and all this stuff. There's also a daily meeting, like the daily Scrum. But sometimes it's really hard to find a common time for all the developers. So I try to make it optional, but if someone is working at this time, they have to attend also at the same time. And finally, I set up a monthly meeting where people are demonstrating the progress they did the last month. This has probably a value because we are demonstrating to the stakeholders, the upper management, what is the progress, but allow people also to present their individual work and feel that they are contributing actively to the company goals. So meetings is quite important, periodic meetings, everyone should be aware about those meetings. I also ask them to use the web cameras all the time, okay? Because this actually creates this virtual environment. And the ugly truth is that in some cases, when you're working from home, you have to attend the meetings that are not in the typical working hours. I'm not telling that you have to participate in the meeting at 3 a.m. in the morning every week, but once in 2-3 months you can do it. But this is, let's say, a first price that you have to pay when you work from home. Not everything will be like it was before. Good bandwidth. I talked about that, especially for someone that manages the team. Okay, it's out of the question to have a good bandwidth. You should be able to clearly communicate everything, and people should be able to see their manager and understand them clearly. And probably there's a plethora of different tools to use. I'm not talking about teleconference, about screen sharing, screen collaboration, all this stuff. I will not name anything, but you can find anything around the net. Now, at this point, I had a video, but it doesn't look like I'm going to play it. It's about, doesn't even show here. It was about a conference call in real life. Okay, I will share the link after my talk. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really funny. I would say it's hilarious, and sometimes it gives you the idea how a conference call would be in real life, in a real office, with people entering and telling the name, hey, John is ending the meeting and trying to talk at the same time. It's really funny. Unfortunately, I can't show it right now, so I will share the link after my my talk, and I recommend to take a look. It's really funny. Now the next one is about collaboration. Meetings are good, okay, because they keep the team members synced and focused to their goals. However, they cannot completely replace the work at office. Okay, having a meeting, spending 2 hours a week together, not the way that we used to work in an office. So I think that we have to increase the collaboration with different ways. So we have different tools again that we can use, and these are the areas that I think that they are most important. Probably they are the same with the typical working environment. What I want to add here is their integration and their automation. So ticketing, probably everyone uses it. Wiki. We discussed in some previous talks that we hate documentation. I think that wiki is really important in distributed teams, not about documenting the code, probably. We prefer clean code than documentation. But there should be some common place of finding information, like what is the, let's say, the process that we follow, the different tools, or how we interact with other, virtual teams like customer support or IT or product or whatever. Also, it's important how I set up my environment. Everything that a newcomer has to read before they join the team has to be placed somewhere. So I think it's a wiki installation, a wiki service here is really important. Code review tools. I hope that there's no development teams that doesn't use any code review tools, but in our case, it's even more important, okay? My experience showed that although some developers pass those tests, they're not good enough. So we need to enforce some code reads, some code reviews from more experienced people, that they are working more time in the teams. So code review tools is really essential. Calendar, document sharing. Like I told you, we are predefined meetings that everyone should attend, and they have to have a common place to find them. Document sharing is even more important. I found that Google Docs and all this Google family of tools is really useful. Absence management can be incorporated with the calendar, but it's really important to know where someone is available or not. A good idea is to keep a list of all the national holidays of the people that are working. So I don't know when it's the official holidays in Argentina or in Poland or in Ukraine. So you have to keep them in a common place and avoid surprises, okay? And finally, Slack. Probably you are all aware of Slack, okay? I think there are many different tools about collaboration and creating this virtual environment. I believe the war has ended, and the winner is Slack. I don't think that any other tool can be, or at least for now, better than Slack, and it has integrations with almost everything. Actually, I don't think if I can, or you can't see my screen. Okay, let me see. Probably not. Well, yeah, I'm using Slack to integrate. I mean, I create a virtual team room for every team, and I integrate all of our tools with Slack, so we get all the information gathered in the same place. The cool thing is that even if you work in different time zones, someone might be in the same time with you, logged in Slack, so you can get information, you can see the history, you can search, you can create private channels, private groups, create webhooks from different environments like your code review tool or your ticketing system. Everything can be in the same place. So I strongly recommend to use Slack or any other alternative that you might have in mind. Automation, again, not rocket science here, but since nothing is placed in a single workspace, we need to enforce automation in several different areas like integration, deployment, also testing. I would say something that is not very popular, enforce automation in some quality checks or in some code read processes. So although I didn't include that here, we spend a lot of time to automate our code review process. We don't want people to spend a lot of time reading others' code and spending a lot of time. And also we have spent a lot of time to integrate our process with quality check tools. So everything is bound together, and we leave developers to spend most of their time doing the actual work of writing code and producing business value for our customers. And again, all this stuff should be somehow integrated, and when something is broken, we should get notifications, not email notifications. The experience shows that email sucks and people don't even open their email clients, so they have to get notifications somewhere else. And I found again that Slack is the best way of doing this. Actually, Slack you can get in your phone, your whatever, so you can get everywhere. The next one is about setting some goals. SMART, the acronym, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic time frame. Specific, everyone has to know a very clear goal. It must be clear, objective, and it should be quantifiable. It means that you should be able to measure it. But this measurement process should not take you too much of your time. So it somehow has to be again automated. Achievable and realistic means that those goals are not, set by someone who doesn't know the business. So people should not be should not lose their morale. But again, it turned out that setting aggressive goals, it has a better effect, a better result. So in some cases, putting aggressive, but still achieving a realistic goal is good enough. And of course, time frame. So a very good example is, let's say that, hey, for this team, I expect from you, Pat, to implement 20 story points with these automated tests. And I know that your velocity for the last month is 15 points per week, but I think you can do it better. So let's try to put 20 points this week. And I will measure it by just getting this information from my ticketing system, and I will see how many tests that you wrote from this system. So setting clear goals to everyone is really important, but make sure that they are aggressive, still achievable in a particular time frame. Goals are not only meant to be on a weekly basis, monthly or quarterly goals, having a bigger image of your goals would be a good point. One more thing that is not very common to developers, it's to try to make them owner of themselves and their actions. It's completely different when you're in the same office. Everyone can jump to your office and ask you something. Now it's almost impossible all the time. So I strongly advise people to start to be leaders of themselves, to take initiatives and not waiting for the manager to tell them exactly what they do. So, and it's impossible for me. I manage seven teams from 4 to 5 people. There are about 30 developers, okay? For a 40 hours week schedule, it's impossible to spend time with every individual. So self-leadership in conjunction with clear goals there are two important things. So like this Greek philosopher told, it's really the best victory is to conquer itself, is to understand that you have the power to take initiatives and decide how you're going to move things forward. Process, I left that at the end. Don't care about what is writing here. I just want to point out that a process has to be very clear, identified and described somewhere, so every newcomer can understand from the first day how they are supposed to work, what are the different steps, the tools that they have to use, if we are doing code reviews, how we are using Git, or what are the branches. Everything has to be documented. The process has to be very well identified. I think it's the same with traditional teams, but okay, it's fine if you don't follow the process strictly in a traditional environment. But in our case, if someone doesn't follow the process, it might be a disaster. Okay, if you skip a test or you don't follow the exact steps, it might be something really bad for us. So all of these little things, if you put them together, you can still create the environment that everyone cares, and they know that you have a real company that cares about their customers, that cares about the developers, that cares about their products. So again, it's building trust. The last thing that I want to share with you is how we manage performance and how we evaluate the performance of all these guys. So, a list of steps again. Pick up a metric, like I told you. Get a baseline. If you don't have any baseline, start measuring from the first day and get the baseline in 1 month when the team starts to produce something. This metric should be quantifiable, easy to understand, should be objective. Everyone should understand how their performance is measured, and it should be comparable. Okay, comparable between inside the team or between different teams, and if possible, keep historical data so you can improve yourself, not yourself as a lead, but as a company, as teams. So, for instance, some metrics and performance, at least I got from some teams. Yeah, story points might be a good idea for teams that are adding new features, probably features, number of features. For teams that are working on legacy products, it turned out that customer defects was the number of customer defects per week or per month was a good number. If you are working also on quality, you can set a goal, hey, increase, let's say, the unit test coverage by X%, or I increase the quality by X technical net units, or whatever makes sense to you, but it has to be quantifiable, and you can present as a number, and you can measure it quickly using any tools. And finally, like I told you, we have individual goals, and again we have team goals. Okay, team goals has to be aligned with the product roadmap and our budget. So the team has, although they have individual goals, everything has to be aligned to these goals. Weekly, monthly, quarterly, having the big picture of your goal in the quarterly basis is good, but then if you don't measure weekly, then how are you going to improve if something goes wrong? You have to change something to improve your team performance within the quarter to achieve the quarterly goals. And finally, provide feedback. You have to be really honest and to these guys, because again, honesty will create trust. And even if they're not performing well, that's fine. I found that it has very good effect when you tell the truth to the people, and have a face-to-face communication again, to have a chat with them and tell them, hey, I think you're doing good here, but you have to improve yourself in these areas and that areas. And probably all this evaluation, not the bad one, should be public and shared across all teams, so everyone from the product team, the customer support, or whoever is the organizational structure, are able to see the progress of the team and how they produce and perform during the quarter. All this stuff, again, is about trust. I have included the same slide again and again and again, and I strongly believe that people that are trusting you as a manager, as a company, they are willing to be more dedicated to this environment, and they are willing to work because they already have this flexibility of working from home, and now that they see that, hey, this is a real business, and they feel really happy, and they're willing to spend their time on that. So this was my talk about managing global teams. It's actually my personal experience. I just shared some research slides at the beginning, but everything else is my personal experience. I don't know if some of you have already worked with distributed teams that have similar or other experience. I would love to hear your feedback, maybe later on. One shameless slide, okay? That's a book I'm writing this nowadays. You can visit this website if you are interested about software gardening. And that's it. Thank you very much. And I think it's about time to take some questions, or if you are really hungry, to run for the lunch. Any questions? Yep. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if you've come across different kind of working practices, and it's a little bit of old research, but it's a guy called Geert Hofstede who looked at different dimensions of culture. One of them is uncertainty avoidance. And if you're physically in a meeting, you'll maybe notice, the Belgian guy is impatient because we're 10 minutes late starting. The British guy is like, oh, well, still making tea, So there's different conventions around even things like punctuality.
Yeah.
And if you ask someone to change their plans.
That's absolutely true, and this is the kind of ethics program that you have.
And how do you manage that, virtually?
Yeah. So you have to keep a balance between all these different people. Actually, we don't have any Belgian and British in our teams. Probably the rates are not that good. But yes, it is a problem. So you have to be very neutral. Okay, you have to keep balance across all different people. And if you set some requirements, I mean, everyone should be at the right time in the meeting, not to be late and keep the time slots because everyone has its own program and his own schedule. I think that's a good scenario. It's not, you can't avoid everything, okay? The good thing is that you don't have a British guy and a Belgian guy in the same room, okay? They are not located there, in their home places. So that's a good point. I guess you have a point. This different culture is sometimes that doesn't help to have team working, but if you set some common practices and focus only on the technical skills, not everything, then I think it will work. Okay.
Have you found any good secrets to share about what you have, if there's not magic or that?
Yeah. So I try to when I staff teams, I try to find people that somehow, at least in nearby locations. It's not always possible. Like I told you, I had some meetings. There are some days that I start my day 8 a.m. in the morning, and the last meeting is 11 p.m. because I have to work with Seattle and Australia at the same time. But it's only once a week. It's a trade-off. Okay, I try to staff teams that they are somehow collocated, but it's not always. There's a team that I have also a daily meeting twice a day because people cannot sit together at the same time. So I have a daily meeting twice. Okay, that's not the common scenario, it's not the norm. But yeah, I'm trying to find the best way to combine all these time zones.